begin this Sunday morning with potential corruption at the highest levels. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer revealing new evidence this week of what he says is influence peddling and potential bribery by Joe Biden and his family. The latest evidence is this check in 2017, which Joe Biden received, a personal check from James and Sarah Biden for $40,000, which Comer says was laundered money from CEFC China Energy, which, of course, is backed by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, in that deal, Hunter Biden and CEFC associate Gong Wendong allegedly received $5 million from the CCP-linked energy company, with Hunter Biden forwarding $400,000 of that money to an entity he solely controlled, an LLC. That entity then later wires $150,000 to a company owned by James and Sarah Biden. James and Sarah Biden then withdraw $50,000 from their company, and they deposit the money into their personal bank account, with the couple then cutting a check to Joe Biden for $40,000, listing it as a loan payment. The transaction, allegedly the same business deal in which Joe Biden was listed as the big guy to receive 10% of all monies in an email sent by Biden family associate James Gilliar. The $40,000 check to Joe is obviously 10% of the initial $400,000 paid to Hunter Biden. Joining me now in a Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is House Oversight Committee Chairman, Congressman James Comer. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good morning.
Is that $40,000 check in step with 10% for the big guy?
It sure is. And if you go back to that email that you just put on the screen, Tony Bobulinski, who was also supposed to be in on that deal with CEFC and the Bidens, where Joe Biden was supposed to get 10% according to Hunter Biden, it matches up perfectly. We traced the $40,000 check that Joe Biden received all the way back to that WhatsApp message where Hunter Biden claimed his father was sitting beside him, where he was shaking down the Chinese operative. That's where that $40,000 was triggered. Just a few weeks after that text message, that $40,000 landed in Joe Biden's pocket after the Bidens laundered it. But that money came from China, further evidence that Joe Biden benefited from his family's influence peddling scheme.
Well, you have now released a lot of evidence with regard to this situation, whether it be witness testimony, 176 suspicious activity reports, now these checks going directly to Joe Biden. He says he never discussed business with his son, was never in business with his son. Are you planning on calling them in and getting subpoenas out?
Absolutely. We've always planned on doing that. This has been a painful process, Maria. We've been obstructed. We've been fought at every turn, not just by the Biden's big money attorneys, but also by the federal government. The IRS is obstructed. The DOJ is obstructed. The Treasury has obstructed. FBI has obstructed. And the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have pretty much been the Biden legal defense team. But through it all, we have followed the money. We've done this the right way. We've subpoenaed bank accounts, and now we have enough bank accounts, Maria, where we can actually trace the money. We can connect the dots, because as you showed on the screen with the series of transactions, that's called money laundering. And this was a very organized criminal enterprise by the Biden family. This wasn't just some drug addict, doing concoctions and making wild transactions. This was very organized. And the reason they did these complicated transactions was to disguise the source of the revenue and to deceive the IRS from paying taxes. So what you're going to see in the coming weeks is a lot of loans. Anytime the Bidens have money, they're going to claim it was a loan, because you don't have to report loans on your taxes. If you're the IRS and you're just looking at someone's taxes, you would never know that Joe Biden got two checks for loan repayments, $200,000 and $40,000. You wouldn't know about all the money that we're going to show that James Biden took in and Hunter Biden took in from loans. Loans is a way, it's an integral part of money laundering, where you deceive from the IRS about the revenue you're taking in. In other words, you're a tax cheat.
Wow. So in other words, in addition to potential bribery, influence peddling, there could be tax evasion as well?
All we see in the Biden transactions are loans, 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 but you never see where they made any interest payments on loans. Very seldom do you see where they even made a principal payment on the loans. I think the next big question the Biden family, including Joe Biden, is going to have to answer to the American people is, what exactly are the terms of these loans? What type of documentation do you have on these loans? Were you going to pay these loans back? Were these forgivable loans? Were these grants? If so, in addition to influence peddling, which we have clearly proved the Bidens were doing, they have tax fraud implications with the IRS.
When are you expecting to issue the subpoenas to bring Biden family members in front of your committee? And how many subpoenas are you expecting to issue?
Well, I think the subpoenas are imminent. I think this is going to be a big week. Look, first of all, we know Tuesday, my friend Jim Jordan, who's also on the Oversight Committee, but he's chair of the Judiciary Committee, doing a great job investigating the weaponization of the federal government. He's bringing in Special Counsel Weiss for a deposition. That is a very important part of the overall impeachment inquiry investigation. There are also a lot of other documents that I think are about to be released this week pertaining to loans and different things that the Bidens have been engaged in that make no sense, that are completely counter to what Joe Biden has said publicly. We're also, as you know, we've subpoenaed a lot of bank documents, and it's taken a long time to get these bank documents in. We're waiting on a few more documents to come in that we've successfully subpoenaed, but it's taken forever. And again, Maria, I don't think the average person can imagine how many different checking accounts the president's son had, and considering he didn't have a legitimate business, that in itself is an enormous red flag. So once all those come in, I think you're going to see swift action on Biden's, and I would predict somewhere around 24 subpoenas in the very near future.
24 subpoenas. Subpoenas are imminent, and you said each of these LLCs had dozens of accounts attached to the LLC.
Some LLCs had a single account. Some LLCs had multiple accounts. But it's been very difficult not only to obtain all of the bank statements, but to put the pieces together. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. This was a very organized criminal scheme by the Bidens. And here's the problem for Joe Biden. He lied about his knowledge and involvement of his family's shady influence peddling schemes. We've proven the family was influence peddling. Even the Democrats and the media won't touch that. We have proven the Bidens were influence peddling. Now what we're looking at is Joe's involvement. And what we have proven in the last 2 weeks with the checks to Joe Biden is Joe Biden benefited directly from his family's shady influence peddling scheme. And it doesn't matter whether or not they come up with some type of document that says it was a loan, which it wasn't, but let's just say that they come up with something. The only way they could have paid Joe Biden is through the family's influence peddling. So either Joe Biden got a $240,000 kickback, which he didn't pay taxes on, or Joe Biden actually did make a loan to the family and they paid him back through proceeds of influence peddling, and $40,000 of that being the 10% from that CEFC deal where Joe Biden was the big guy. Either way, Joe Biden's $240,000 better off because of his family's criminal activity.
And I know it's been hard to get all of the Republicans on the same page for a long time. We saw that play out in the speaker's race. But I see that your colleague, Don Bacon, tweeted out this video from the Wall Street Journal explaining the influence peddling potential here. Tell me about that and how important that is that you see somebody like a Don Bacon tweeting this out. He says this Wall Street Journal video explains the $240,000 payments that President Biden received from his son and brother and where that money originated from. The president must address this because this looks like old-fashioned corruption. Your thoughts?
Don Bacon's one of the most respected members of Congress. In fact, he was the guy that a lot of moderate Democrats wanted to try to get elected Speaker of the House. Don Bacon doesn't want to do an unnecessary impeachment. He's a straight shooter. He's a moderate, good guy. But it's obvious that Joe Biden's lying about this. Politico, which has attacked me for 9 months for having the audacity to lead an investigation of Joe Biden, they published a story today outlining numerous lies that Joe Biden has said about his family's influence peddling scheme. I mean, Politico's late to the game, but better late than never. What you're seeing, Maria, is momentum at the obvious being that the President of the United States has lied about his family's criminal activity, and he was a central figure in the influence peddling scheme.
Wow. Well, you've called it a criminal scheme. Based on what you know today, Congressman, should Joe Biden be impeached?
I think he should, but that's going to be left up to the Speaker. You know, people ask me why I haven't put someone in jail yet. All I can do is investigate. The House of Representatives can determine whether or not to impeach. But at the end of the day, we're going to need an attorney general who does the right thing and prosecutes people according to the law and doesn't have a two-tier system of justice.
Congressman, thank you very much for your work. We will be following it, of course. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.